Hey folks, Phil Gallagher here, back for more daily D&T. We're 1-1 right now, playing against Just Get Down. We have kind of a stinker as far as hands go. If we keep this, it's a gamble that we're basically playing against exactly a Delver deck or a Merit Lodge deck. We have one dead card already, so it's kind of like we've already mulliganed. I'd rather do something that can leverage being on the play a little bit better. This is much stronger. I'll be keeping this one and either throwing back my Wasteland or my Flicker Wisp. So the way this hand is going to curve out is we're going to go turn 1 Mom into turn 2 Port into turn 3 Prelate. The mana denial plan is supplemented by keeping the Wasteland, so I'm going to go ahead and keep that. The Flicker Wisp without a good target or an Ether Vial is probably our weakest card in the opener. Source of Plowshares my mom? Bolt my mom? Bolt my mom. If I Wasteland here, I can then try to curve Tomic into Sanctum Prelate. So I think it's fine to not give them the opportunity to brainstorm in their upkeep. There's a world where we choose to play around Daze this game by just porting this turn. I'm not going to live my life scared. Living your life scared when your opponent has a Delver on board sounds like a good way to die. No Delver flip, plus my Tomic resolved. There was a long pause. So does my opponent actually have a counterspell, or did they just decide they were going to go and answer it in some other capacity? Ooh. Ooh. Highest upside play is to play Rishadan Port, cast Sanctum Prelate. I've been chatting for a while with a Moto representative, helping them try to figure out a bug with card importing. So if you see me typing some stuff off to the left, that's what's going on. I think I'm just going to attempt to resolve my Sanctum Prelate. I kind of feel like my opponent has Force of Will, given how the previous turns played out. And they opted not to play Tomic since they have a threat that's bigger than Tomic. Yeah, I actually took a break for about 20 minutes in recording to go and try to figure out which one of my Moto cards haven't been importing properly. A lot of times when I've been doing my donation deck lists and stuff, I download a deck list, and then some things weren't going through properly, and I have to manually figure out what wasn't going in. And then in my stream today, I was talking about that bug, and a lot of people are like, "Yeah, it's not working for major cards. It's not working for Brainstorm. It's not working for Swords to Plowshares." So. So not wastelanding means that we're going to have more mana to work with in the face of this Renin 6. This Tarmogoyf is going to get to smack me around a little bit. What? Why is Tarmogoyf not coming in? And my opponent also returns no cards to their hand with Renin 6's ability? My opponent has 7 cards in graveyard. If they have a Nimble Mongoose, they can just, like, play a fetch land and fetch next turn. They're not changing the size of the Tarmogoyf by returning a land. That seems very questionable to me. We have to attack the Renin 6 to turn on my draws for being live for the future. And I don't think I can afford to wasteland my opponent. It's just kind of fruitless in the face of Renin 6. So we'll let this resolve. I assume the Delver is going to flip. It flips to Daze. We'll tap that down. Another Brainstorm. And another Delver, which presumably is going to flip off of that Brainstorm. Yeah, what on earth is my opponent doing not returning these cards? Like, so they cast a Brainstorm this turn, right? If they had returned a land the previous turn, they could still have the threshold they would potentially need for a Mongoose, but also have kept 1 card and then, like, fetch some bad stuff away. Alright, draw's not being super cooperative here. We're going to need to trade Atomic for a Delver and then trade Atomic for another Delver. So I kind of want to get cheeky and tap this fetch land and, like, force my opponent to keep whatever instant or sorcery they potentially put on top of their library. And, like, maybe make it so the Delver does not flip and save myself a couple of points of life. Sorry, I'm sitting here thinking about my opponent's play pattern. Like, is this a clear error, or is there something else that I am missing? Where there's some card where they need X number of lands in their graveyard. Like, I need to sort of, like, not just go into autopilot and assume that it's 100% a mistake. I need to think and see, is there anything else that it could have been? All right, yeah, so by porting that, we successfully kept the Delver from flipping, which is great. We will trade with that Delver. Now my opponent has returned to land. Thalia not great in the face of Wrenn and 6. We could have ported down a land to play around Hardcast Force of Will, and perhaps should have. Now we're going to tap that down to not let them get a scry off of this Delver. So, like, they're drawing whatever that card is. They don't get to fetch it away. It is a Spell Pierce. Perfect. My life total is under duress. I probably need to make this trade. It just does not feel good. Like a Stoneforge or a Sword of Fire and Ice or a Recruiter. Those would all be fantastic top decks. I'd even accept a Caracas. Alright, so we'll go for end of turn, put in Thalia, and hope for the best here. I could technically wait one more turn before putting the Thalia in. If I wait, it means I can potentially keep a 1-drop alive. Let's do that and get super punished if I draw Sword of Fire and Ice. Well, that's a fine draw. So I know my opponent has Spell Pierce. They don't have Hardcast Force of Will right now, but they could have Pitch Cast Force of Will right now. Let's try to take this off the table. See if it works. It does work. Okay. We're off to a start. Let's see if this Wrenn and 6 just starts ticking down at me. That's a very real possibility. Oh man, another Goyf? That is unfortunate. So that Wrenn and 6 emblem is probably not beatable. So let's put in our Thalia, hope to spike Sword of Fire and Ice. We leave this at 2 in order to play towards that line. Although moving it to 3 opens up Flicker Wisp. I'll leave it at 2, hope for Stoneforge. Another Thalia. Okay, that is no good. So I'm mostly continuing playing now because I want to see how aggressive my opponent is on getting this Wrenn and 6 emblem. I want to know if they are just going to like emblem at any cost, or if they are going to like use this to just like shoot my face. I'm really curious to see what they do with this, because that information for later is very important. Alright, just emblem immediately and then they can kill me with Lightning Bolt. They have shown me that they know what's going on. They tightened up for the second half of that game, but played the beginning of that game pretty poorly. Alright, so we probably want Rest in Peace, Council's Judgment, and Path to Exile here. We probably do not want Palace Jailer. Probably do not want our Revokers, our Prelate, and potentially our Recruiters. We try to get a little bit leaner for these post-sideboard games. It's justifiable to keep Recruiters in, like, because they serve a real purpose. But they're kind of medium. Going up to 6 removal spells is slightly awkward in that, like, they're bad against Wrenn and 6, which is a great threat against us. And they're bad against some of the threats my opponent can play. But, like, we got domed for a lot by a Tarmogoyf that game. Which is an easy way to lose this. Our creature count dips a little low by boarding like this, which I don't love. We have a pretty fantastic hand in that we have like 3 lands and 4 relevant cards for the matchup. We're going to start by jamming the Thalia. It doesn't play into like a Spell Pierce that my opponent might have, and if this eats a Spell Snare so that this resolves, I'm super happy with that. It also just means that my opponent can't like make their next play Wrenn and 6. And even though we kind of have Wrenn and 6 answered in 2 different ways, like, we want to try and resolve this Rest in Peace, because it just makes my opponent's deck so much worse. Perfectly happy trading cards there. A Delver of Secrets. So, while Wrenn and 6 is not yet returning lands, let's try to resolve a Rest in Peace. And then we'll play a Mom into a Daze. Preordain. It still kind of sucks that, like, if my opponent just plays Wrenn and 6 here, they minus on the Mom, and they still get their value out of that card before I Council's Judgment it away. But I think it's just correct to go and muck with that thing. My opponent got a 2-for-1 with their Planeswalker. That's what they're going for. But hopefully, like, Flicker Wisp plus Jitte is enough to clean house here. See if my opponent just plays a True Name and, like, ruins me. Yep. Five mana. So I can keep this land around to play around a Daze. Well, why don't we do it this way? Let's cast my Flicker Wisp. If it resolves, I flicker my Wasteland. And I'll Wasteland their Volcanic Island in my end step. And then let's jam the Jitte into a Daze. Oh, shit. That's a huge error. Now that gives them an opportunity to Lightning Bolt my Flicker Wisp, but I'm not punished for it, thankfully. So for anyone who just like watches these videos and doesn't play Magic Online themselves, there's a shortcut that is like F2, yield until something happens, and then there's another shortcut that's F6, which is yield until end of turn. And I whacked F6 instead of F2. Frustrating. So like I can flicker the Delver to unflip it, but not get any ground out of it. Probably still has to happen. Just very disappointing. Because if I don't make this play, then I just get Dome for 6, Wrenn minuses, then I get deaded. If my opponent thought ahead about that line, yeah, then this happens and they just like reflip the Delver, crash in for 6, Derp, 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 derp. Yeah, so when this card was everywhere, I was super not hot on D&T. Now, thankfully, it is not everywhere. It's just popular instead of abundant. All right, we got absolutely destroyed there. Good games, opponent. I'll see you all tomorrow.